The challenge of the defender is that you must secure the entire thing, right?
Yeah,
Like you got to fortify the entire house. And the advantage of the attacker is they only have to find one way in.
that's right.
Doesn't that seem futile? like, like I don't know. I'm just getting a little bit worn down, perhaps, because it's like I'm just
Yeah,
thinking about how many lines of code are in, for instance, the Debian distribution. Because XZ is low level software and certainly widely deployed, but
hmm
mostly invisible. And would we have considered it critical software? I mean, maybe some people would have, but for the most part, it's just down there. It's utility software. And how much of that is there?
I think if
Millions upon millions of lines of code, of course.
yeah,
But like,
totally.
it just seems like we have to overhaul. I mean, you're talking about new ish best practices around writing and deploying secure code, but it almost requires an entire industry, come to Jesus moment with regard to these practices before it's ever going to actually help us.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were just looking at the code bases and assumed that all of it was sitting unprotected on the internet, it would feel and likely be futile, to be honest. And I think this is where the rest of mature security programs come into place and things that we can do as an industry. So, I think that that's where like zero trust and identity as a perimeter and those kind of concepts, secure by design, come into play. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
if we have strong authentication in front of access to a lot of these systems, if we have network isolation between key systems, if we have, role-based access control, so if we kind of assume that parts of these systems will eventually experience some sort of security issue, how do
Mm-hmm.
we firewall those off from other parts of the system? And so I think this is where the rest of that comes into play. And I also think the other element to this is I think the industry does need to level this up. Like, so the CISA Secure by Design pledge that was announced and many companies, including GitHub, signed at RSA a few weeks ago, talks about this, right? It talks about needing increased commitment from key players in the industry to implement secure by design principles as part of, not just as part of their internal programs, but as part of the products they offer to the world and to users, so that the settings that make things more secure are on by default, even if it causes a little more friction or one more click for a user. And I think that's really an important part of this that, honestly, we do have to progress as an industry here. And I think it's critical that that's the other element of responsibility that companies, corporations, and organizations take in this space.